Hello everyone. This short video is about 3 favorite apps that I like to use that I want to share with you. The first one is called Explain Everything. Explain Everything is my favorite whiteboard app. I've been using it for about 6 years or more now. And when it first came out, it was only designed for iOS, so basically an iPad. You could also have gotten it on your cell phone as well, which is your iPhone. But the company has gone ahead and created a version that could be used on Android and iOS. But that particular version is a subscription version. The second app that I like to tell you about is Padlet. Padlet is an electronic bulletin board. So think of you having a huge bulletin board outside of your office or inside of your office, it doesn't matter where. But you could post material on that bulletin board for the students. Solutions, you could post video links, or actually, video links itself, YouTube links, and so forth. You could actually record sort of a quick video response to a question that a student might have posed and have it there, and the video is actually available to them. You could just simply click on that video and then hit a video response. And you could do that very easily with your webcam. You could have a Q&A section. You could have a section where the students themselves, you give them permission to actually post material that they want to share with the rest of the classroom. So it is quite fascinating, I find, to be able to just look at that bulletin board and see all that information staring at you in a visual format. And the third one is Socrative. Socrative essentially is polling software. Some of you might use polling in your classrooms, and then you have clickers, so you could see the students' responses and gauge the extent to which they understand a particular concept. But in this case, this is just an electronic version of that. I could get the students to take up their cell phones, their computers, or their tablets and simply go to Socrative.com, log in. Well, they don't have to have an account, but I will give them a code that is for the student login, and then launch a quiz. They respond, and we could sort of show the responses visually, and they could actually see the responses in real time. We can analyze the responses, see where there are gaps in terms of the performance, and then use that to kind of zero in on what aspect of the lecture I need to focus on a bit more. So I really, really like Socrative. So these are the 3 apps that I want to tell you about, and I do hope that you find them useful. All right? So check out the apps one at a time. So I'm going to start off by demonstrating Socrative for you. As I mentioned, Socrative essentially is polling software. One nice thing about Socrative is that there's an app you could download on your tablet, Android or iOS, on your cell phone, or you could actually launch it from a web browser. So the students have multiple ways of actually accessing your quiz. And so Socrative.com, if you're a teacher, you create an account, a teacher's account, and you will have a special code that's assigned to your room. Now there are different plans. If we look at the plans, we'll see that the free version allows you 50 students, and since our class sizes have been reduced, so 50 students should be accommodated. What I used to do is that even if I had 60 students, in the majority of cases, I didn't have 50 showing up to class. And if there was 60 and I wanted, then the first 50 that answer, that's my sample, essentially. So kind of a random selection. You have one room, right, for your class, and then you launch one activity at a time. So you could just launch one activity. And that could be a quiz. If you want to go to the pro version, then now you get everything in the free plan, as you can see, but you could actually now have 20 different rooms, and each of them would have a separate code. So perhaps if you wanted to say run your quiz and you had 3 classes and you wanted to run 3 quizzes in parallel, each of them would have a separate code, and it would actually take the quiz for that you've assigned to a particular room if you wanted to do that. Okay, or maybe you give the different rooms different types of quizzes or different types of projects to work on, whatever it is. And then of course you could export, or you could import your classroom through a CVS file, an Excel file, a CSV file, and so forth. All right, so for me, the free version is fine. And if I go to login, essentially the students would select the student login. If they have the app just simply asks them to enter the code. Because I have a teacher's account, I will go into my teacher's account, and this is the code for my class right here, 7B9FC823. That doesn't change, so the students could actually store that. And once I launch a quiz, all the students have to do is to enter that code, they see the quiz, and then start responding. That's as simple as it is. You would need to create quizzes, or you might actually have some quizzes already done. In my case, I do have some that I created in the past that I would use just before we get into doing some computation. I would use it as what I call a check-in. So interval estimation, we want to do a check-in on that. Day one, as you could see, management 2207, day one check-in, or descriptive statistics, or hypothesis testing. So those are quizzes that I've created. So if you want, you could create all of your check-in quizzes ahead of time, and all you have to do is to simply launch them. Or you could just simply put a single question on the board and ask them to respond through a poll, if you want to do that. All right, so once, let me just grab one that I already have here. If we look at the interval estimation, this is kind of what the quiz looks like. And I could actually go in and edit the question. So as you can see, you could add questions, and since I've already created that quiz, I could edit the questions that are in there, or I could actually go down to the end and then add a new question, multiple choice, a true or false, or a short answer. So if I wanted a multiple choice question, I simply put the question text right here. Where is Halifax? And then you put the answers, of course, right? In Quebec, in Manitoba, right? Nova Scotia, and in PEI. And this is your correct answer. And so you do that. And then you add the next question, the next question, the next question. So once you're done, you save any changes that you've made, of course, save and exit. And I'm back to my list of quizzes. So if I want to go back here to launch, I could simply say I want to launch a quiz. And then which quiz do I want to launch? So I have a whole bunch of them here. I could say let's launch the interval estimation quiz. All right. And then these are some options in terms of delivery method. Instant feedback, the students actually have to answer the questions as they go in the order. They can't change the answers. And then they could actually get instant feedback whether or not they got it right or wrong. Because, I mean, if you allow them to change the answers, then you really shouldn't give them instant feedback, right? This one that's called open navigation is where the students could actually answer in any order. And the teacher paces the way the teacher decides, okay, you give the next question, okay, answer, the next question, answer, the next question, answer. So you will control the pace of that. And I typically tend to use open navigation. You could require the students to enter their names, or you just they just get an anonymous code assigned to them. You could shuffle the questions, shuffle the answers for the students, and you could show them their final score if you want to, right? Because you have open navigation, the students can go back and forth through the quiz, then you will not be able to give them feedback on the answers. Otherwise, you could go back and change the answers, right? And once that's done, you simply start the quiz. And it's now waiting to receive answers. Now, you could show the answers. If you actually basically broadcasting this live, in the sense that you want to see the progress and you have that being shown through your display, then you may not want to show the answers, because it will show for each student what answer they give, if it's answer A in this one, B, or C, D, or whatever. So you would want to hide the answers. So all you just see is their progress, where it's highlighted the questions that they've answered. So there are 9 questions in this quiz, and as different students register, the table the number of rows will increase based on the number of students. And then you can see the progress of a student. When you're done, you simply say finish, and then you would actually see the results. What percentage of students got question 1 right, what percentage of students got question 2 right, 3 right, and so forth. So I find that very useful. I really like it, and I've used it quite a bit. The students kind of like I say, pull out your cell phones, and they pull out their cell phones, and then, okay, what's the code? And then you see them, trying to do the quiz. And right then, and they're kind of fascinated by looking up on the board and actually seeing the progress. If their names are written, then you could see they could see their own progress sort of showing up on the screen. But I try to keep it anonymous and not show the answers, because I'm just interested in a check-in. But if you wanted to use that as a way of giving students a bonus for showing up to class, you could run those quizzes in class in the beginning, or wherever you decide to do in the middle of your class, have them put in their names, because you could export the results now to your desktop as an Excel file, and then you could then give them bonus points from the quizzes. They could earn some bonus points. The reason why I do this is because I flip the classroom, and in flipping the classroom, the students are expected to review the lecture before coming into the class. So that's one way of checking to see the level of understanding. Now, if they do poorly, they may have reviewed the material, or they may not have reviewed the material. So in fact, one of the questions I should ask is, did you actually review the lecture notes before coming to class? And then maybe look at a kind of correlation between that and what the scores are. So I probably will add that now going forward. You don't know whether the students would answer honestly, if they've actually reviewed the material or not. But if the names are anonymous, maybe they would be more honest in telling you whether or not they watched the video lecture ahead of coming to class. And then that's useful information. So then if you find that they're not doing that, then you have to provide some kind of incentive for them to watch it before coming to class. And typically that is in the form of a short practice quiz that you want to collect the marks and give them either bonus points or make it count towards their grade. You have to find a way to drive them towards engaging the material prior to coming to class if you plan on flipping the classroom. All right, so there's really not a whole lot more to show you with regards to Socrative. Like I said, it's just essentially an electronic version of polling students in your class and using clickers. Once we're done, we see we're done, and then we actually go and watch the results. So here, as I clicked on that, question number 1, I would have seen the responses. In interval estimation, as the sample size becomes larger, the interval estimate, right, becomes narrow because the standard deviation actually gets smaller. So you see what's happening here with these questions, and then you could actually provide an explanation when you're designing the quiz. You could provide an explanation. So that explanation is the feedback that the students would get if you allow them to actually get feedback on the questions after they've answered it, right? And then you could go to the next question and the next question and the next question and see how they've done. After that's finished, I pretty much say, okay, judging from your performance here, I think we need to spend a little time on the material that's related to question 6, or the material that's related to question 4, and then do a bit of work on that. All right. So that here, folks, is Socrative. And like I said, there are other equivalents. Poll Everywhere is another one, but I don't use Poll Everywhere at the moment. I tend to use Socrative, but you certainly can use it, and it's equally efficient. Now we move on to Padlet. And as I mentioned to you, Padlet is an electronic bulletin board that could really enable you to create a learning commons for your students. When I say learning commons, a space where students could come, a central point, and they could either talk to each other or talk to you. And you could share information with them, they could share information with you. Now you certainly can do that in Brightspace, no problem there. Sometimes I find just the layout of Brightspace is not as friendly in terms of that functionality that I'm looking for in terms of a learning commons compared to Padlet. Now I should just sort of give you one caveat. As much as I like to play along or play around with a lot of these different pieces of technology. Reality is that the students, not all students, as excited as I am in terms of doing a lot of those things. They like to, I did ask them, it's just anecdotal, how did they like Padlet? Some students liked it, and some students say they rather just stay in Brightspace because they're used to using it for so many classes. So if we could just stay in Brightspace, that's cool. Some people don't mind, and all it requires essentially is just to click a link. Now, granted, I could have put the link to Padlet inside of Brightspace. So if they want to go to the Learning Commons and just call it that Learning Commons, just click on that and it takes them there. So it's like the same way you open another page in Brightspace. It would just open up as another tab in Brightspace itself, but it would have its unique layout. So if you create an account and you get to be able to create it does have subscription, but the free account does plenty for you. I have a couple of Padlets already there. So as you can see, I have my 2207 Learning Commons and my 6506 Learning Commons. So I'll go to the 2207 Learning Commons. And essentially, you could have different layouts for your bulletin board. I love this layout. It's just fairly simple. So it's just a matter of columns. And so if I take my entire space and I just divide up into several columns, then that'll be fine. So as you can see here, I have one column, which is the course outline. I actually use something called workbooks. So I pre-select a number of questions that the students actually have a copy of, and I say to them, rather than flipping through pages of your textbook or bringing a textbook to class, why don't we I'm going to give you those workbooks. I actually leave spaces in between the questions, and the students actually work through the questions with me. So I might work one problem and say, okay, you work the next one. And that's how we flip in the classroom. If they're prepared, when we come to class, I do a demonstration in addition to the one that they would have, or two that they would have seen in the lecture. And then in the class, they're supposed to be working by themselves or maybe in pairs, and I could get to walk around and provide some support. So that's my general approach. So they have a workbook there. If they forget the workbook, they could double click on the workbook, and here it is right here, right? It's fairly straightforward to be able to do that. Then after we complete one workbook, I actually put the solutions to that workbook there, so they actually have it. As you well know, some students don't show up to class, but they have access to the workbook. The more they know that they have access to material, the less likely they will actually show up to class and do things. But interestingly enough, it doesn't really save them, because a lot of those students don't do very well. I could post the assignments in Brightspace, but then as a backup, if a student goes to Padlet, I also have a redundant copy of the assignments right there, so they could actually see it in Padlet itself, rather than having to go back to Brightspace if they're in Padlet. The tables are right there, so sometimes you could just, if we're working a problem, if they're in Padlet and they need to see a formula, so the formula is actually right there. And then you see here peer support, comments, questions, answers, so the students could actually post some questions there. As you can see here, some Morgan Baker Tucker posted a question. Some people like it, and another person posted something else. So you could see the students actually do use it, right? And I like that, because you could just sort of scroll there rather than emails that are sent to me personally. But when the students post their questions here, the other students have access to that. All right, you could I believe that might be the last. Let me see here if I have any more. I think it's actually, oh no, here you go, I got some other ones. Video notes, I call it vid notes, so that if I just want to record a video note to something, I could actually do it very quickly here. Miscellaneous data files. If sometimes I get tired of the text and I come up with my own question, I'll come up with some data and then we solve it. So I'll just put the data there for them to go and access it. All right. So let's just see a simple example of we could add a column. So as you can see here, showing up, add a column. We would have to name that. Let me see, what would I call that? My favorite food. Save that. And then under my favorite food, I could put something under here. What do I want to call that? Caribbean foods. Right? Write something. And I could either write something, or I could add a link. I could upload a file, as you can see here. I could Google. I could take a picture. And there are more items. And look at the things that you could put in here. You could upload, as you can see, link, Google, snap, film, voice, screen, draw. So all of that are things that you could actually put in that space right there. So I mean, that's just wonderful functionality if you could use it. What you can do is actually decide what are the things that I would use most over here. Now let's say if we wanted to put a link, and we could find those foods at on St. Mary's website, smu.ca. Let's see what we get here. And that should essentially post up St. Mary's right here. So right here, the students can just click on that and get taken to St. Mary's. If we continue, we could add another one. Now you could actually decide if you want the most recent items on the top or the most recent items on the bottom, right? Depending on how you want to go. If from old to new, like top oldest, bottom newest, or top newest, bottom oldest, right? So if I did this, so I think I have it, the newest is always on top. Let's see what I could do. I could call this a response to question, I don't know, from Jane Doe. And I'm going to actually do this with a short video response. So I go to film, starting my camera and microphone. So it's a little slow because I'm actually using my camera and microphone to record this video. So there has to be some sharing that will take place. Oh, I see what's waiting for. It's waiting for permission. There we go. Hello, here I am. And so I could go like this. Hello everyone. Jane Doe asked a question about assignment 4. I just want you to know that assignment 4 has been extended to the 15th of September. So you no longer have to submit it on the 10th. You do have 5 more days to submit that assignment. Done? You could discard and restart or say no. Close it or save it. Looks good. Save. We're saving that video, and eventually that video will show up right there. There we go. There's my video response. And if I play that back, or it's being prepared, so I have to wait a little while. So that's all good. If I want to delete anything that I posted, I could just delete it. As you could see, I could just delete that from here. And like I said, we could keep adding things, just whatever else you want to add under each of those headings. That's it. So you think about just what you want to show up on your bulletin board, and you just sort of create the content as you go along. All right. It's a fairly dynamic process. And so this is very visual. If you look at this, this is like a lot of material from the course right here. In fact, I have miscellaneous. I sort of put some stats from the first test, and the students could look and see test 1. The mode was 82%, median 80%. 148 out of 163 students actually answered that test. And we see the minimum was 30%, so some people did fail. Maximum was 94%, the average was 76.5, and you can see the distribution. So I show that to them so they could actually see what that distribution looks like, see how they compare to the average for that particular test. So I just copy that out of Brightspace, take an image capture, and then post that there as an image, as you can see, because when you are posting miscellaneous, if I go back, you could upload a file, and that could be an image file fairly easily. This snap here is really your webcam snapping a picture of you. So if I just want to just snap, say, hey, 3, 2, 1. Right, there you go. And save that. It's going to just save that photo. Here it is right here. So it could be a photograph of something you want to show them or whatever that is. Folks, this is Padlet. You create an account, you create a Padlet, which is your bulletin board, you name it. So I call mine MSc 2207 Learning Commons, and you start creating your columns. It gives you some different layouts, and then you add the content, and you could share your Padlet now with your students. So I've invited, for example, Vinita to take a look at that Padlet. I'm not sure if she did, but you could copy the link to that Padlet to clipboard and send it out to your students, and that same link will be what will take them to this. So I just put that link in Brightspace, and the students could just go to Padlet anytime. So in any module, and in my case, when I organize my Brightspace course according to weeks, so week 1, week 2, week 3, I would just simply repeat at the top. I would have Padlet as a place you can go to, and the link to Padlet right there. So anytime they want to go to Padlet, they could just click on it in Brightspace, and it would take them there. And you could set it to open up in a new window as opposed to opening up outside of Brightspace, so that way they stay inside of Brightspace. And that's how I'm actually going to address that, so that way they don't feel they're actually using 2 separate platforms, but that Padlet is inside of Brightspace. You get a QR code, you could email it, the link to them, share it on Facebook, on Twitter. It's real cool. Share it in Google Classroom and all of that sort of stuff. All right. So that's all I need to show you here for Padlet. That's my second favorite app. The third one is coming up next, so stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. So for the final app I'm going to show you is ExplainEDU. As I mentioned to you, the company now has these 2 versions, one that works with both Android and iOS, but it's a subscription based version. The old very first version of the software has been renamed ExplainEDU, and is available for iOS only, and you could purchase it for a single fee with a lifetime license. And so thankfully the version that I bought for $2.99 is, I have not had to pay any extra for it. It's been grandfathered, and so I have it in perpetuity unless they do something to destroy the functionality of it. But here it is on my iPad, that little squiggly thing down here, as you can see. I open that up. I'm going to just close this project to just demonstrate very quickly. So it gives you an option to join if you're collaborating. Somebody could send you a code and you could join with them, but collaboration, I think, is actually reserved for the paid subscription. You could share any project that you've created beforehand. You could share it in a number of ways. So if I actually go to share, these are like lectures that I've created in the past, as you could see, right? I've done quite a few of those. Looking at a transportation model as an example. So if I want to share them, you just select which one you want to share, and what you're going to do, you could export it as a video, as a document, which could be a PDF file, as an image. If it is just a single page, you just want to just save it as an image, you certainly can do that. If you want to export it as a video, it will give you some options whether or not I want to send that video to YouTube, to my Google Drive, my OneDrive, and or just save it to my camera roll, save it to Dropbox. So lots of options, right? And so forth. Box, web, DAV, whatever that is. I've never used it. Or even iTunes. If you're going to use iTunes EDU as a place where you store your videos, so you have options for doing that. I just wanted to share that with you. So let's just very quickly demonstrate a new project, and that new project would be a lecture. A blank canvas, so you could use a template. I'm just going to use a blank canvas. I always like to have total control, and you get something like this. I have mine set almost by default to a think that's fine. Yep, that should be fine. Alright, so excuse me. So mine is set as a blackboard in this case, and I have a couple options. So if you look on the left hand side, this area right here, you have your menus. I could add files to my whiteboard. So for example, if I want to add something, I could add a picture, I could add a video, I could go to a browser, I could add an equation, clip art, whatever I want to add, or a file. Say for example, if I have a question that is written up on a Word document or a PDF file, it's better to actually do a PDF. Then I could actually import that file into my space. So if I select file, I could go look for that file anywhere in terms of OneDrive, in my Dropbox, or my Google Drive, etc. So I could look for it anywhere. All right. And if I go and look in the files here, for example, I have these things right here that I could add to the workspace. So it's kind of cool. If you have a picture, you could bring that in, if you know, whatever that is. A browser, if I wanted to, I could actually go in here and put www.smu.ca, and that's right in here. And one of the nice things about this is now you could annotate that website. I could annotate it if I wanted to, you know. Talk about, we need to change this door. I'm just kidding. So we could certainly do these demonstrations right here, and it's actually live, I think, in here, if I'm not mistaken. Right? Maybe not. Or maybe if I have to switch to this, it might actually be live. Yeah. Okay, there you go. So it's actually live inside of the workspace itself. So if I'm doing a presentation and I want to talk a bit about you know, St. Mary's and different aspects, I could actually just switch over, and then the web page is live, right? So that's a web page. I could actually create a new page with the plus sign on the right and add something else on the next page if I wanted to. Let's go back here. If I want to add a picture, my camera comes up. Woo, you see all the technology on my desk. Let me flip my camera. This looks bad. And here I am. So you could certainly add a picture of myself if I wanted to, but of course I don't want to. So there you go. An equation, clip art, whatever you want to bring in as source material into your lecture, you certainly can do that. All right. I wanted to demonstrate that. The hand is just a pointer that allows you to move stuff around on the desktop itself. But as you could see down here, there's a record button. All right, there's a record button. So if I actually wanted to record directly onto my device, I could actually press the record button. It will start recording, and whatever I do here, xij over n over I of j is equal to x bar. That has been recorded. Right? So if I go back here and replay that, it will start recording, and whatever I do here, xij over n over I of j is equal to x bar. So there you go. Right? So you could actually, so essentially I could use this app and record a tutorial directly onto my iPad and then export it to any location that I want to, Google Drive, YouTube, Vimeo, etc. Right? Dropbox, OneDrive, etc. So that's one option. One of the things though, I should mention, if you decided to do that, because you're using the microphone on the device itself, the iPad, when I'm actually writing, it will, that noise will be recorded as well and gets very annoying. So if you wanted to do that, you have to make sure that you're not using the microphone on the device itself, but perhaps maybe connect your headphones in with a mic, and so that mic is now further away from the surface of the iPad itself. Or mirror your device to your desktop and then do the screen capture from your desktop. So that way you minimize the noise from your writing. If you like me, I write very heavily, right? So there's that. I just want to show you a couple of other neat little things. So right now my default is a blackboard, but if I go here and I click, I have the option of changing the palette, the color palette. So I could have different boards as I swing down the bottom. I'm just dragging down for the colors, for the color palette, and I could pick whatever color board that I want. I could actually go for much more, instead of the extended color palette, I could switch it to a simple palette, basic color palette. And I kind of like a green board too as well, that I use sometimes, but you can see here's the blackboard. If I want to kind of a maroon board, say mirrors colors, there you go, you could do that, or a gray board, whatever you want to choose. Also, what's cool, if you want to write up with lined spaces, let's go here. I'm just changing the color palette at the same time so you can see this. There you go. You could have lines, or you could have something like this, which is useful for those people who might be doing graphical problems and so on. That allows you to do that. If you want to go even just those sort of points, you could certainly switch that. Or if you want to have a kind of a textured background, you certainly can do that as well, right? It's totally up to you what you want to do, but in my case, I don't want any of that, and I would just go with a simple blackboard. I like the blackboard because I like the color contrast against the blackboard. So I'm done, and I'm just going to introduce a new page here, fresh new page, and I will just show you a couple of things. So that's right now that's my pen. This would be my eraser right here. I believe this is like a fill color. You could draw shapes perhaps with those, I believe. You could write in text. You could erase a whole section. If you have a section of content that you put in at one point in time, you could erase all of that section with the X. I believe this is a pointer. You could undo, right? And I believe here, there's streamline your workspace to fit your needs. Okay, so you could decide what you really want to keep in the sort of list of items on the left hand side here. So that's essentially what that is. All right, and I will just show you that if you know, drawing a little box. One of the nice things about that, if I'm finishing and I'm saying, okay, this is all cool, I could move that over, as I was saying earlier, and I could continue writing, etc. And then after I'm done with that, I could kind of squish that and move it over, and then I keep creating space for myself as I go along. All right. I want to demonstrate these colors quite nicely. Right. And Z is equal to X bar minus mu, sigma over root n. You could do all of that sort of fancy stuff, and there you go. You get your area associated with the Z value and all of that. Very cool. After I'm done, I say, okay, I want to move this over somewhere else. I squish it, and I still have some space before I need to actually go and create a brand new page. Okay, so this is essentially that whiteboard, which I find is quite useful. If I continue over here again, www.smu.ca, and I want to erase that, I could say, could certainly erase that. Go back here, .com, right? Anything of that nature, like that. And like I said, you could just select your different colors that you want. It's very cool. And you could change the size of your pen if you wanted to do that. Very nice. You could minimize that and put that out of the way when you need to. Okay. So once we're done with that, and I've shown you how you could record. You add new pages by simply pressing your plus sign. If you want to go and remove sheets, you just press your number. You have 4 slides of 4. I want to remove this one right here, so I just select on it, and I could just delete it from the list of slides, right? And I believe also you might even be able to change the background of the individual slides themselves. So maybe I want this slide on this background. I say done. Or is that true? Yes. So this one has been changed, but of course the colors don't match up on it very nicely, so that's not cool. I should go back and change that color to something darker. So there you go. So your individual slides could have different colors. I'm just saying that there's a lot of good functionality. If you want to make your lectures interesting and not just a plain whiteboard all the time, you could just change those things just to keep the students kind of engaged and keep them paying attention. So while I'm lecturing, maybe one board is a green board and I switch to a black board and I switch to a white board. I like doing that as a way of just changing things up a little bit for them. All right. I find that useful. So once I'm done, I could save and close this particular project and record my next lecture or whatever it is. I could use it either in a live setting or I could use it in a sort of pre-recorded setting. As I said, if I'm going to pre-record a lecture and I'm using my this app and so on, I tend to do my screen capture from the computer as opposed to doing the recording inside the app itself, and that's only because of that noise. Like I said, sometimes I could just use the pair of headphones and use that for my microphone, which is away from the surface of the iPad, and then that would be less noise when I'm actually writing. Option is totally yours, right? And so the reason also too why I like sort of recording the lecture on my computer screen instead by mirroring my iPad is because then I will directly look at my computer screen, and because I'm also including my webcam with what I'm doing, then at least I'm kind of looking in that direction as opposed to looking sideways at my iPad and so forth. So I'll generally tend to bring the iPad in front of me like this, and then I would be talking and explaining right here as we're doing this, right? So this is the way I generally like to do it, record from the computer screen. So which is actually what I'm doing here right here, is that I'm not recording on my iPad, I'm actually recording from my computer screen using Movavi. So as I mentioned, I'm done. I'm not going to save this. I'm going to close without saving anything, and I'm back to my library of projects that I've created in the past. All right, and that's it. You could play around with some of these templates and see what it gives you, sketch notes or whatever that is, and interesting things here. You could just play along with, like I said, all the different templates that you have available to you for use. All right, good. So that brings us to the end of my third favorite app. So just to recap again, my three favorite apps are essentially Padlet, Socrative, and ExplainEDU. And I say ExplainEDU, but it's really Explain Everything. EDU version is the iOS version only that can be purchased for, I think, $13.99, well, or around that, with a permanent license. You do not have to subscribe in that case, but that's only for folks with iOS devices. If you have an Android, you're going to have to get Explain Everything, and it's a subscription plan. All right, good. I hope you found that useful. I would have separated it into 3 separate videos, but rather than inundating you with 3 separate videos, I thought I'd just make one. So have fun, folks. Explore those and share also with the rest of us what some of your favorite apps are. Have a pleasant day.